Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morganroth. Proud to be back. Last week I had to go to the hospital, and I'm feeling a little bit better tonight. First, before I turn over to the crew, I want to thank all the folks at Baptist Health Medical in Miami. Were great, from the doctors to the nurses and all the assistants that took care of me for the 3.5 days I was in there. We want to talk about a first-class group of individuals that took care of me. I'm very proud that they still got my side those tough 3.5 days. I'm glad to be back in my element with all you guys. And we even have a new member as part of the Tuesday night team as well. But before we get to the new member, okay, we have Coach Bono. Welcome back.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be here.
Great to have you. And Mr. U, welcome to the big show.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's awesome, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, looking forward to having you. Yeah, more of these bad boy Tuesday nights. What a good stuff here, Mr. U.
Let's do it.
And now we're going to turn it over to Mr. Mel Farr Jr.
Hey, guys. Again, sorry for being late.
No problem. You made it before we went live. It's all a good thing. And George Eichhorn, you and I are doing a first of two. And I guess I can't help around the U analogy because I got one of them on here.
Yeah, good to see everybody tonight.
And last but not least, Bo.
How's it going, guys?
And yes, hello all. Just plugged away in Michigan, Jeremy. All right, glad you're in the chat room. Good stuff. Okay, I don't think we have a busy agenda. We're going to call this show, it's not quantity, it's quality, because that's exactly what it is when you lead off with one topic about Daniel Jones getting sacked 11 times in a giant 24-3 loss versus Seattle. Coach Bono, have you ever had a quarterback get sacked that many times in one game?
I don't remember, but I probably have. But I've been with some really good teams and been with some bad teams. But man, that's, you worry about him being able to make it through the season, with getting hit that much. And it's just, the Cowboys are really good. We've talked about them. Their defense is outstanding. But I think New York's got to be one of my most disappointing teams right now. Coming off of last year, big turnaround, making it, sneaking into the playoffs, but winning the playoff game, Dable getting coach of the year. And it's like the Super Bowl hangover without the Super Bowl. It's pretty much how I would describe them right now. But and they had their opportunities in that game. At least early on, they had a big turnover, I think, going in, and it just, man, you just wonder if they can even get to 9 wins like they did last year, if they can't find a way to protect them.
Okay, well, you know what, Coach? I'm going to go right to the chat room. Hey, Mr. U, things are going to get very busy in the chat room. Don't worry. Good evening, fellas. Jennifer Lee Cobb. Jen, I'm out of the hospital. I'm looking forward to getting back on there with you. And Coach Bono, I'm going to bring you on with Jen, and we're going to talk about head injuries, Parkinson's disease, in terms of what she's doing in relation to special teams and tackling. So, Jen, get ready for Coach Bono. He's going to be on one of our shows together. Great to hear from you, Jen. It really is. So I'll go through the chat room as quick as I can. And Mr. U, we're going to go with the flow. I have a feeling it's going to be a very fast-paced one, and I like it that way. So with that said, let's go back to Jeremy. Okay, yeah, there's pretty interesting games this past week. We're not going to get to them all. Quantity and not quality. Charles Ramos. Oh, my goodness. What are you looking at? My cheat sheet? Serious? Don't worry. We'll get to that one, too. All right. Let's see. Let's keep it rolling. Yeah. The next level stuff. QB sacks in 2 games for Danny Nichols. He's not dropping too many dimes these days. All right. Well,
he dropped all the dimes.
Yeah, right. 11 sacks. Yeah, I can count that high. All right. With that said, Mr. U, now that you got it all from the chat room, let's talk. Give me your perspectives about Daniel Jones.
Where do I begin? I'm trying to keep myself out of rehab because of this game right now. But I think really a couple of things I noticed about this. Now, I'm a diehard fan, so I've been watching the Giants probably even before I even knew I was watching the Giants. But as it pertains to Daniel Jones, I always had – he reminded me of Eli in a lot of ways. But the one thing that he didn't seem to have was when Eli first started out, his O-line situation wasn't good. What they did was, because they invested in him, they fixed it. They had a guy like David Beard, and they actually fixed it. In this case, they call themselves trying to fix it, but they got guys that they probably shouldn't have drafted as high as they did and put them out there, didn't have any idea what they were doing. They had strong issues in the draft that you probably wouldn't want to have somebody that high being drafted. Issue with footwork, stuff like that. They put their high-dollar quarterback in there and let him get killed. I mean, he's like the 10th quarterback in NFL history to get sacked double-digit times. That's not a good number, you know. So, like Coach Bonner was saying, I don't know how you're gonna get through the season, but the one thing I want to address Jeremy's point that he made about the being called Danny Nichols, Danny Dimes. The reason why he's Danny Dimes is because of Saquonbarkley. Let's be honest about it.
Right.
Without the play action, he can't do the Danny Dimes thing. So Saquon not being there, he becomes kind of ordinary, and he's going to get smashed out there if they keep that going for the rest of the season without Saquon out there doing that. It's going to be a horrible situation. I don't feel great about what's going. I predicted him a lot of high because I thought Barkley be not injured. I thought the O-line would at least be competent enough to protect him while they kind of do their Danny Dimes thing. But now we're facing off against 3 tough teams coming up. And I'm like, we could be looking at staying at 1-5, 1-6 right now. It's like, it's hard to come back from even in the 17-win season. I don't know how we do that. O-line situation is not good. So I'm pretty concerned. I'm like, okay, are we drafting Caleb? Are we shooting for what's going to happen here? Because I won't be Debbie Downer, but I'm not feeling good about what's happening right now. This is not. And the coaching is a whole different story. That's I can erupt tonight.
All right, let's go back to the chat room before I turn over to Mel. All right, let's continue on. I haven't eaten that golden corral in a long time, but you guys.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was
I love Jeremy, man, but come on, man.
Yeah, really. Okay.
Golden Corral don't have no athletes.
Why do they have them back in Detroit, George? I don't even know. To be honest
they have a couple still in
He's saying
Detroit.
that O-line didn't either.
Yeah, right. I'm with you. All right. Well, I'll tell you, it's an animated chat room. Rookie Witherspoon was outstanding last night. Okay. All right, Mel, I'm going to turn it over to you and digest what's in here.
Yeah, I think Mr. U hit it. I mean, we know it's hard to win in the NFL, and the Giants, their team is based on being able to run the football. And if you can't run the football, which they did not run the football effectively at all yesterday, then you become one-dimensional. And those guys just pin their ears back, and it's just a Congo line to the quarterback, and that's what they had going on yesterday. It's tough when you know what the team is going to do. You're not concerned. I mean, you're daring them to run. I mean, you want them to run. Yeah, you're not concerned about that. So it was just a Congo line to the quarterback all evening long. Makes it for a very difficult day for the quarterback, for the offensive lineman as well. When they know that when they know that the defense knows that you're going to be passing, and they're doing all their little tricks and their stunts, and they're working on everything. They're ripping underarm over, spin moves, the tackle in stunts and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're having a blast. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully Saquon gets back soon. We're only 4 games into the season, and we know a lot of teams can turn. You can go on a little run and get yourself righted real quick, but it starts one game at a time. It's very difficult, like I said, to win games, especially if you start looking ahead of yourself. You just got to, deal with the task that's in front of you, and that's the next football game. That's the only thing that you can control. Do everything you can to prepare yourself to go out there and perform at your best. and we'll see what happens. But hopefully they get their running back, and they have some better performances in the coming weeks.
George?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have nailed it. All the things that have been mentioned so far. Coach, you were spot on. I remember when I was looking over their depth chart before the season started, and I too had high hopes for the Giants, not necessarily to go to the Super Bowl, but at least to be a very much improved and contending team. Now you're sitting at 1-3, and you're faced with the prospect of going to Miami and playing the Dolphins next Sunday at 1:00. So I mean, like you were saying, there's there's losses staring at you unless you can turn this ship around right away. Not a good game for Monday Night Football, of course. And those poor New York, how about those poor New York fans, huh? They saw the Jets lose to KC, and then they saw their Giants lose. Same stadium, 2 nights in a row. Not looking good right now, but Mel hit it. I mean, they got to get a running attack. They got to get a running game going. And it's a shame Barkley's out, but boy, you got to do something. You just can't throw, because you're going to end up like in this type of situation. But I'm not giving up on Daniel Jones. I'm not buying any of that stuff that says he's not worth it, because I think he showed us last year he is worth it. And I think they do have some time. Obviously, they do have time to straighten this around, Scott.
All right, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a lot of time to straighten it out. I mean, it has to start this next game because their season can get out of hand real quick. But probably the thing that was the most troubling about it is it's not like they had a hard time stopping one guy, right? They had four different guys with multiple sacks and 7 different guys with a sack, right? So everybody was eating. I mean, I went back and rewatched that game today, and it was a race to the quarterback. That line couldn't stop any. They would have been better off to just chop block, fall on the ground, make people trip than what they were doing. It was really crazy. I feel bad for Jones, right? I mean, because although he got sacked 11 times, there were 4 other times he could have been sacked. He was just athletic enough to fall across the line of scrimmage. It's one of those situations while I was watching that, especially with about 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, they put up, 3 more. Why is Jones even still in that game, right? I mean, now you're just looking at a guy that was sacked 11 times and was hit 20-something times. Get him out of the game, right? I mean, you're down 3 scores. Your offense hasn't moved. Give the backup some reps, because the last thing you need to do is have Daniel Jones get knocked out of the game. And, then you miss him for these heavy-hitting games that you're about to go do. And if you're doing that with a backup, you're definitely losing those games. So, I mean, there's some coaching things there that I don't really get. They did the same thing when they were playing the Cowboys, too. They were getting blown out. Get Jones out of there. I mean, he got sacked 7 times in that game. So it's just there's things that Daboll has done with Jones that doesn't make a lot of sense, just player safety-wise. Or play health anyway.
Now, I should point out that Inside the Pigskin is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. One way to get in there is through the chat room. The other way is to send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And by doing so, we'll match up with the topic that fits what you're talking about. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find us on Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. Candy Epling is behind the scenes doing a lot of work, but I also think she's behind the scenes watching Milwaukee Brewers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. So she gets the night off for being a trooper, especially last week. So let's backtrack to the chat room a little bit. And I know we have some topics that are going to go out there and meet what we're talking about. So let's get right to it. All right, we've already talked about the Giants O-line. We may get to the Bears. I don't know. But anyways, the next one is Bill Belichick suffers his worst loss ever, 35 points of his career as a Cowboys rout the Patriots 38-3. Let me summarize one thing, and I'm turning it over to the rest of y'all. And that's this, okay? Jimmy Johnson of Fox, formerly the Miami Dolphins, said, I don't care how good of a coach you are. If you don't have good players, you're in trouble, period. If anybody knows about it more than Jimmy Johnson, I'd like to know. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to the coach and his broadcast coach, Bono.
Yeah, I mean, you're used to seeing that flipped, right? We've gotten used to over the past decade or more seeing the Patriots do that to everybody else, and so to take a beating that way, I mean, there's a lot of issues, right? I mean, obviously, you know, Mac Jones had a poor day. You know, he threw what he had two. They had, I know the Cowboys had two defensive touchdowns, and I mean, that's just it's hard to come back from those things. You know what I mean? But I do know this. I think that there's a lot of pride in that organization, and I'm sure there's a lot of soul searching going on the last couple of days, but the Patriots will bounce back and they'll surprise some people. They will. They're just, there's just too much talent there, too much intellectual talent, and too much pride. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but they'll bounce back. They'll beat some people.
Okay, Mr. U.
Yeah. I think Coach Bono took the words out of my mouth. They got too much talent, man. It's not just on paper, and they actually have legit talent. I'm talking about these guys on different teams, and they were producing, pretty much doing the same thing they're doing here in New England. They got too much talent to not win some games and shock some folks. I wonder about Belichick because I think he has the pedigree to call his own shots and decide when he wants to leave. So it's like now we had to sit there and kind of just balance that between, okay, is it a need for a new coach, or should you just keep him and try to replace pieces on the field? It's a weird dynamic they got going on, but they got to figure it out because they're probably going to be last in the division this year, and they have been in that place for, I think, at least a couple of years now, I think. So, and he benched Mac Jones last week, I think in the third quarter. I was like, wow, okay, so what does that say? So I know he likes Zappe a lot more, but I don't know whether that's a bridge to that or not. But there's a lot going on in New England, man. Most definitely.
Yeah, Bailey Zappe, I'm glad that they took Mac Jones up for his own sake and gave Bailey Zappe a chance to play a little bit, because at that point in the game, it just got so way out of control. And might as well put Bailey. But Belichick has already said there won't be any quarterback controversy right now. He feels that he's going to continue to work with Mac Jones, and he should, because Bill O'Brien is the offensive coordinator, and he worked with him at Alabama. So you can't give up on a kid after 4 games.
There were several games where Mac Jones looked great, man. There were several games this year. I was texting Bo while the games were going on. I think it was against the Eagles, and there's another team that they played. Mac Jones looked fantastic. Threw for like 510 yards. He was out there balling. And then he has a game where it's like, does he know what he's doing? It's kind of up and down. It's kind of hard to predict what's going to happen, but yeah, you're right, man.
Okay. All right, Mel, I know you're waiting patiently.
Yeah, I think you kind of wonder, was it the Patriot way or was it Brady way? Because things haven't gone all that great since Tom Brady left. But you also have to understand that Alabama's kind of going through this as well. When you have teams that cannibalize your coaching staff, eventually you're going to have some issues. I mean, they've lost defensive coordinators over the year. They've lost offensive coordinators over the year. But the one thing that's been constant has been Tom Brady. And Tom Brady has made up for a lot of shortfalls that they've had on their roster, whether it be at the wide receiver position or maybe on the defensive side of the ball, whatever the case may have been. When you have a special talent like that, he covers up for a lot. He was able to cover up for a lot of mistakes that they made personnel wise. Now they have to play it like everybody else, and every time they draft, and they have to be able to make a contribution to the team, and that depth is important. I think Mac Jones is going to be all right. The Patriots have no one. Bill Belichick has no one to blame for Mac Jones' performance or his lack thereof, but himself, because of what he did to him last year. I mean, that set him back 2 or 3 years by putting a defensive coordinator as his offensive coordinator. I know what that did for my brother when that happened when he was at UCLA. They made the defensive line coach the offensive coordinator. But he went from having the record for receptions to barely catching the ball because the offense was just very vanilla and extremely predictable, and no one for this. And I think Mac Jones is a good quarterback. I think Mac Jones will be okay. He's back with his college quarterback, so I think things will inevitably work out. But again, they ran up against a buzzsaw. They ran up against the Cowboys at a time in which they were embarrassed on national TV last week when they lost to the Arizona Cardinals, a team that everybody thought was vying for the number one overall pick, and they went out there and laid an egg that particular week. So they came back. They had they were on a mission this past week, and it was unfortunate that it just happened to be the Patriots.
Yeah, well, Jeremy Ballrick also said they're legit, except when they play the Cardinals. Echo those thoughts. Let's stay in the chat room before I turn over to George. Okay, Charles Ramos Jr., I need the Cowboys to make it to the Super Bowl this year. Let us pray. Okay, if you say so, and they're your team, I certainly give you the open forum to root for them. And to lose the Detroit wild card like back in 1991. Okay, well, it's the last playoff win for Detroit. Let's keep it rolling. Well, there's a problem with the Birds. They constantly choke against the Eagles. I'm not touching that one, but I'll take your word for that. Charles is on a roll, though. Both times Tony Romo got in the playoffs, we're like, yay. And then we say they had to play the Eagles, and it's like, never mind. I'll tell you, you guys have come up with some pretty interesting stuff. So, all right, let's go to the Mr. Ballrick and Mr. Nickname part of the program here. Letting Matt Patricia and Joe Vudge run that offense was an atrocity to smart football. All right, well, some individuals, you accept their sense of humor, and I'll leave it at that. You can see it, and you heard it, and on to the next one. I'm going to be working on the stadium deal, stadium for Super Bowl. That's why. All right, Charles, they're with you. Keep it rolling. We like hearing these comments. They keep the show and they keep the crew, stimulated. All right, George, go ahead.
Oh, another 1-3 start. We were just talking about the Giants, and now we got New England. So, hey, this is a tough league, and you got to be ready. You got to be ready to strap it on and play. And if you're not ready, things like this happen. Obviously, I agree with Mel. They had a lot to prove after that loss. Dallas looked superb, just superb, all facets of the game. And you just got to stand back and say, hey, okay, let's move on from this. It's not a good scene. New England is having their problems right now. They got a great coach, a Hall of Fame coach. I have the confidence that he can help turn that around for them. But the thing is like we just talked about in the case of the Giants, you got to get that first step. You have to get a win under your belt. If you start going 1-3, I mean, there's too many teams out there that should be better than they are right now. We know that. And New England is one of those.
Hey, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, you knew the Cowboys were going to come in and do work coming off of being embarrassed the week before. And when it comes to Belichick, I mean, he does have the latitude to kind of, be bad for a few years before they pull the trigger on getting him out of there. But, it was a tough game. Mac Jones to me is funny though, because he's not a elite talent guy, right? He's not that top 5 dude. He's just not that guy. And so what they need is something like, a system that's around him, like Brock Purdy or Geno or, quarterbacks like that, right? He isn't designed to be out there to be that guy. So they need a solid running game, which they don't really have. Their offensive defensive lines are decent. They have a pretty good defense overall. But, I mean, he needs weapons around him, and he needs a scheme that's going to help him be successful. Because, again, he's just not the, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen type talent. He's just not that guy. He was probably the most polished coming out of the draft, but his ceiling was lower than the rest of the guys he was drafted with, in my mind. But, you feel bad for him because he's also in a position where they're not the best team in their division. They're not the third best team in their division most of the time. So I think this is going to be a long season for him.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to debate you at all so far. We'll see how it turns around. Last thing I'm going to talk about before I turn over to Mel is a game that stands out to me is a Lions 34-20 win over the Packers in Green Bay. Obviously, Fox flexed the October 15th game at Tampa Bay at 4:25 p.m. So the only thing I'll say about Detroit's performance is Jared Goff continues to win in Green Bay and have the Packers mastery. Lions are playing good football. So they're earning the right to be on national television during prime, and now they're going to have an opportunity to play against an upstart Tampa Bay Buccaneer team in a couple of weeks. Actually, that weekend I'll be in Tampa covering the Florida Atlantic University Owls and my alma mater, the University of South Florida Bulls, the day before. I'm not going to be going to the Lions game because I certainly need to go ahead and get back home. But, Coach, why don't you give me your idea about what game of the week stood out for you?
Man, that was a good one. I wish I'd have been able to watch it. I didn't get to watch that game. But there was a couple I wrote down here. I thought the Jets Kansas City game was a great game. They were right there. Questionable call at the end. Great to be able to see Zach Wilson rebound and have a good game. And then I thought the Bills, the way they handled Miami, I thought was impressive. I think they're definitely an elite team, top tier team. And then you just mentioned them, but I thought Tampa Bay was very impressive in how they moved the ball and were able to score points against New Orleans on the road with Baker Mayfield. I thought Baker played a really good game, took some heavy shots and just kept coming back and stood in there. So there was some bad ball this week, but there was some good ball too. So those were my top three games, along with the Lions game, which I unfortunately wasn't able to watch.
Yeah, I'm happy for Baker Mayfield that he seems to have settled into a situation where you've got the veteran presence. They don't lack the offensive weapons at all over there, and he's got a fresh start. That's all there is to it. So with that said, let's go back to the chat room. I saw some interesting things I'm going to address. I want to make sure I get to as many of them as I can. Sometimes I can't always get to them all, so I try to pick and choose the ones that make sense in terms of what we're talking about at that particular time. But yeah, Jeremy, Zach Wilson is definitely looking good. And I think the folks have to in New York need to cut him a little slack. I think he's going to be fine as long as you have Aaron Rodgers in the building just to kind of coach the guy along. All right, with that said, I'm going to bring it over to Mr. U. What stood out to you?
In a few games, the Texans and the Steelers stood out to me. I was glued to my screen. Like, this is the team that's supposed to probably be at the bottom of the standings. They went out there and jumped all over Pittsburgh. A lot to go into there, but defense played a big part in that game. The Bills in Miami. I put a poll up on Twitter just to see. I knew what people were going to say. They're going to say, "Oh, Miami's going to win handily," and it was an overwhelming vote for Miami over the Buffalo. And Buffalo went through their defense. Well, the offense too. Josh had 4 touchdowns in the air and 1 on the ground. And then defense like Greg Rousseau, remember that name? Just had I think 2 got sacked 4 or 5 times during that game. And then the Chiefs and the Jets, me and Bo was talking about that one. I don't know if you talked about it on Monday morning, but
yep, yeah, that's what we opened with.
Zach Wilson, yeah. See, Zach Wilson kind of reminds me of the situation with Daniel Jones. They didn't take care of him in the beginning. They kind of just threw the playbook at him and said, "Go out there and play, kid," and didn't give him the kind of protection that he needed as a young quarterback coming in, and it showed. So I'm glad, like you said, that Rodgers in the building to kind of help mentor him in a way, but he went out there and balled, but he was acting like he wasn't afraid to throw the ball down the field. The Chiefs almost got knocked off. So those are 3 games that was pretty impressive, man. Just a couple more, but those are the 3 that stood out for me.
Yeah, I want to put a comment up here that I really like, and I'll go back to Jeremy again. I said prior to the draft, cjstroud might be the best QB that gets to play this season. Pretty hard to argue that. Jeremy's only 4-0, right? Because
that's not a hot take.
Most pro ready, so he came out of Ohio State. So good point, Jeremy. All right, with that said, Mel, there's a lot to digest here.
Yeah, without question. I mean, the Jets and the Kansas City game was very intriguing to me. Patrick Mahomes throws only 1 touchdown, throws 2 interceptions, only threw for 197 yards. That Jets defense gave them every opportunity to win that game, and you can see that Zach Wilson is playing with a little bit more confidence. Looked like they were going to be able to pull it out, but unfortunately they came up a little bit short. I think the Raider and the Charger game, with Khalil Mack getting 6 sacks, I think that was big. The other game that was interesting to me was the Bears and the Broncos, and just looking at how well Justin Fields played this past week versus in weeks past. I mean, I guess if you want to get right, play the Broncos. Get right. And
Are they on our
I
schedule?
really couldn't believe that they ended up losing that game. I was taken aback by that when I saw the final score that they actually ended up losing that game, because I was happy. We were just talking about Justin Fields last week, and I think the guy's a player. I just think he's unfortunately found himself in a bad situation. But looks like last week he overcame it. They benched Claypool, and they're out there firing on all cylinders against Denver. That doesn't bode well for Vance Joseph. Getting that 70-piece hung on them last week, and then what Justin Fields did this prior week. I mean, they're going to have to stop somebody at some point in time. But those are the games that I found interesting or intriguing this past week.
Yeah, we'll go back to what Jeremy said. The Bears snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. With the Anki game, I've seen Justin Fields actually look like a quarterback. Well, he did in that game anyways. His legs are there. You got to play to the guy's strengths. You have to let him run. George.
Oh, yeah. I definitely put Detroit, obviously, being a local schmo like me, at the top of my list of games of the week. David Montgomery just had a blistering game. 3 touchdowns, 32 carries, 121 rushing yards. He was killing it, man, over the Packers. Aiden Hutchinson, NFC Defensive Player of the Week for the second time. He killed it, too. And, of course, Jared Goff, like you guys mentioned. I mean, Scott, he's coming to his own. He's at ease. He's got a good comfort level. He's level-headed. He's just really, really playing the best ball, I think, of his career right now. So that game was really, really the one that, of course, all the people up here had their eyes on as the Lions moved to 3-1. You guys have mentioned the other games that were interesting. I'm not going to rehash them again overtime. I was impressed, of course, by our ex-Lions quarterback, I should say, Matthew Stafford, over Indianapolis, and he had a hell of a game. The Rams are far from being dead. And the other one was the Chargers. So both LA teams won, both New York teams lost. I found that quite interesting this weekend, as the Chargers, of course, took care of Las Vegas. The Raiders are really struggling right now.
All right, let's go to the chat room again. Lambeau Field is known as Fordfield North. Yeah, I was amazed that they bought 40% of the tickets available online. So for a lot of those people that had Lambeau Field as a bucket list item, they got a bucket list and a victory to go with it. All right, Bo, you have the final say on this, and then I'll turn over to Mel.
Yeah, so, I mean, as a Hawks fan, the Monday night game, it showed a lot of good things for that Seattle defense, right? It's a unit that has been hurt a lot. Adams comes back and, plays 4 plays, basically, and, is hurt again. But everything over the last couple of games shows progression of that front seven, and so that was good to watch. But one of the standout games for me was the Texans Steelers. The Texans really look like they're ahead of schedule on building that team. They're playing really good ball. Even in the games that they lost, the team was competitive, right? I mean, they lost and they weren't particularly close first 2 weeks, whatever, but they looked pretty good in moments. And then the last 2 weeks, they look like a good football team. Everybody, all the rest of the games, everybody already talked about anyway.
No, but you know what though? This is going to be a segment that we're actually going to start bringing in every week. I really like the different opinions on here, so we'll look forward. Travis Holmes should be back next week, so we have 7. Who cares? Doesn't matter. And there's a lot more football games, and we have people here, so that'll just give 7 opinions versus 6. Either way, this is a segment we're going to have every week. So get used to it here on Inside the Pigskin, presented by the South Florida Tribune. All right, I'm going to hand the show over to Mel.
Yeah, so back to college football, we had a big game this past weekend, 10 a.m. local time kickoff that the coaches agreed upon, so they could play at noon on national television, and it looked like Colorado was still asleep when the game started. They didn't wake up till about 11, 12 o'clock. And made it a game because it looked like it was going to be the same type of game it was the previous week when they played Oregon. that they were just going to run away with it. But it actually ended up being a pretty good ball game. I think late in the game, there were some decisions as far as how long it took getting plays in or getting plays run that cost them some time. It cost them some plays to be able to get the ball back again to maybe go in for the tying score. But it ended up being a good football game. But my takeaway from it is SC in trouble looking at the rest of their schedule, because defensively, offensively, yeah, they can play with anybody, but defensively, they've got some problems. And not only that, you look into the future with them going into the Big Ten. Are they going to be able to compete with that Big 12 defense that they have? What do you think, Coach?
They're going to have to get better on defense. I mean, if you look at it, this is a systemic deal, right? Because Lincolnriley's an offensive coach. I mean, that's where the talent's going to go. That's what, and it's something that's followed him from Oklahoma. I mean, so at some point, he as the head coach has to address that, right? You can't just swap out coordinators and swap players. I mean, you have to make a concerted effort to figure out why, right? What is it? Is it recruiting? Is it, but again, I think it's more of a, again, you're talking about a guy that's immensely talented, super smart, but became a head coach at a very, very young age, and that has been the knock with him consistently since, he took over that program at Oklahoma, and now over at USC they've always been lacking on that side of the ball.
Mr. U?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to catch that game. I really wish I did, but I've been talking to some folks online, and they always kind of ride the bandwagon, talk about Dion and how they kind of rallying against the system. But I'm one of those guys, man. I'm a longtime football fan, but I love the discipline of football. I know that's not popular to say that kind of stuff. That's what I care about. Me and Bo talked about it on the show many times, even offline. If you're not a disciplined person or you don't teach discipline, what are you going to have on the field? A team that averages 10 penalties every single week. That's what you got. You know what I'm saying? So it shouldn't have been that close, perhaps, but then we also talked about the USC defense. We're kind of concerned about that, but when I was talking about that as well. You got Colorado team that probably they're talented and everything, but maybe it shouldn't have been that close, perhaps. But you kind of let them in it because you're a defense and let them do what they want to do. And it's like that's not going to happen when they come over to the Big Ten. I mean, I'm a fan. Everybody knows it's not a big deal, but our defense is probably one of the top ones in the country. You ain't doing that with us. We're going to shut you down. And most of the teams that have a top defense, like maybe Ohio State, Penn State, whatever, that's not going to happen here. So they got to fix that this year before they come over to the 10, because they can get walloped. They come over here trying to outscore us. It's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? But with Colorado, that was just something that we talked about with the discipline part. If you don't fix that part, I don't care how much talent you got, nothing's happening. Because you can't have 10 penalties every week and think you're going to be beating people.
Yeah, you hurt yourself. There's no question about it. Yeah, George, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, Mel, I didn't think that it was going to be that kind of game. I didn't think it was going to be that close. I'm a little bit surprised, like what you were saying about USC giving up that much offense and allowing that many points. I mean, Dion's got a great thing going in Colorado, but I mean, obviously USC's in another class, and as are teams like Washington. And I just think that I know we want to get ahead of ourselves regarding the Big Ten, but obviously the focus is this year winning, obviously, the Pac-12. They're going to do it. I think they're still going to do it. But yeah, to me, it exposed a lot more than I thought about USC. Now, that being said, I mean, there's still time to fix it, obviously. And if you want to be in contention for the national championship, you better fix it. You can't allow that many points and that kind of comeback. But all that being said, it's going to be a difficult adjustment for teams coming into the new look Big Ten, as it will be for the Big Ten teams that are there now in trying to see how they can defeat teams like UCLA and USC and Washington. So it's going to be tough for both squads. But now I'm just focused on USC this year and see if they can turn it around defensively, like you were saying.
Yeah, Bo, I'd like to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern going into this was that the SC defense isn't great. So I thought it was going to be a little bit of a shootout. I did think SC was going to, have a bigger lead than that, but I thought there was going to be points scored on both sides. The thing that jumped off the page to me that is a huge concern for SC is Colorado ended up with almost 200 yards rushing. That's out of a team that hasn't had more than their best game was 68 yards, right? So if you are supposed to be a national contender, at least in the conversation, and you can't shut down the running attack from a team that has shown no semblance of a running game at all, that's a huge concern. Now, Colorado losing this game, yeah, I mean, that's what I figured they would be. I thought they were going to be a bowl-eligible 6-win type team. Like that's what I imagined they would be. So is this closer than I thought it should have been? Absolutely. And that is, in my mind, way more based on SC's lack of defense. And if they want to continue on their path to be in that national championship conversation, that's something they need to work on real soon.
Yeah. Coach, you brought up a good point about Lincolnriley being an offensive-minded coach. And that's kind of one of the things we've talked about a little bit with head coaches, offensive-minded, defensive-minded, and they coach differently. An offensive-minded coach coaches differently than a defensive-minded coach. Defensive-minded coach is going to kind of keep things close to the vest. They want to play a physical game. They want to run the football. They want to control the ball. They don't want to have a lot of risk, throwing the football. There's a lot of risk involved with throwing the football. They want to limit the risk. So they're going to run the football a lot more than they throw it. It's going to be play action passing. It's going to be short passes because they want to protect their defense. The defensive-minded coach wants to protect his defense. Doesn't want to put his defense in a bad situation. Offensive-minded coach, he doesn't care. He's just doing whatever it is that he wants to do. And you've seen it with Alabama over the years. Nick Saban's kind of had to give up a little bit as far as control, so to speak, with his defense when they started. When they were having difficult times with these teams, with like the Oregons and the teams that had this wide open passing game that were running you from sideline to sideline, and you're going horizontally, from one side to the other, and also stretching you vertically, made it very difficult for his defense to keep up with their offense, to keep up with that type of defense. They were kind of a old Big Ten type of offense, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. First down they're going to run, second down they're going to run, third down they're going to throw the football. But he kind of had to change a little bit and adapt with the times, and I know it probably killed him. But you could see how they kind of evolved over the years, and with some of the players that they've gotten in there and the coordinators that they brought in there with Lane Kiffin and so forth, with his creativity and the things that they were doing on the offensive side of the ball. But you look like in the NFL, Mike Vrabel, he's going to, they want to run the football. Tomlin, they want to run the football. These guys are a defensive-minded coach. Pete Carroll, he wants to run the football. He's going to protect his defense, wants to play tough, hard-nosed, physical football. You get these offensive coaches, like the guy down there in Miami, they just want to sling it around the yard. That's all they want to do. They want to show you how creative they can be. And Sean Payton, obviously, he's an offensive-minded guy. They just want to show you how smart they are and how brilliant they are and all the different plays that they can run. And I just find that interesting, especially with these talking pundits, where they talk about, what type of coach is best for a young quarterback. And it really depends, the coach, it really depends on, what happens is those good coordinators, they end up getting head coaching jobs because these owners are listed to these talking pundits as well. Hey, I need to get me one of those smart guys and one of those smart offensive coaches and see what they can do. Well, that's not always the best. That's not always the best situation. You just need to get the best man for the job. Hell, John Harbaugh was a special teams coach, and he's been over there at Baltimore for 16 years now. Mm-hmm. And they compete year in and year out. So I just wanted to get that in and I'll throw it back to you, Scott.
All right, Mel, thank you very much. All right, Jeremy, the Dolphins might score another 70 ribeye. Yeah, they came down to earth against Buffalo, but who knows when they're playing the Giants, especially since Daniel Jones got sacked the other time. So I'm not sure if I can actually go out there and give a straight face with something like that because it does happen to be pretty good. So that's why I put them up. Sometimes I don't put these things up when they come up. I just slide them in there nicely. Let me address the college situation. What you're going to find with Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC is when they finally play Big Ten competition, it's going to be harder for them. They're the ones that are going to have to play in these sub-0 degree temperatures. Ice, snow is a foreign language out there. So it'll be interesting. And if you don't believe me, why don't you go out there and talk to the Nebraska Cornhuskers? They didn't make the transition that easier. And I don't see Penn State as dominant as well. So, Mel, good point that you really brought up. I don't know, Jeremy. We'll be watching this as a storyline that if they put up another 70 point there, then who knows? Maybe at some point down the line, you might have an opportunity to express it to one of us or on a different show. But, it is what it is. Also, it's nice to see some new faces tonight as well. So let me bring those up a little bit. Charles Ramos Jr., it's good to see you on here as well. So, and of course, Darcy, I believe, is on here. I'm going to just mention a couple of new people on here because I like to get as many people as we can. So let's just go out there and let my fingers do the walking with the mouse pad to see who we have. All right, let's see what we got. Charles Ramos Jr. been really great, intelligent, active, much appreciated. And let's see who else we have. All right, let's see. Any comments that stand out there? We've got, trying to look. Yeah, well, whatever. I think we put a lot of them up there, and we'll keep it rolling here. So with that said, okay, I want to just see if there's any comments that I probably may have left out. Darcy Maville participated tonight. I know he does some stuff on a Lions show on another network, but obviously the Lions are a big part of the show, and they have a feeling they may be next week as well, depending on what happens with the Carolina Panthers over the weekend. And another thing that we're going to mention here, see, Coach, we're getting it out there, my friend. This is what we have. So I want to thank everybody else for participating in the chat room. They all know who they are, Charles, Jeremy, and everybody else. It's been a really active, enjoyable show. So anybody have any final thoughts at all? I think things are going really well. I think, the one thing we try to do is we really, really aim for perfection here and to make sure that we don't miss many storylines. And I'm going to be going to a more liberal format, going to more games so that everybody can speak their mind without me having to go out there and do it. I think we have done pretty well there. Coach, any closing thoughts about this week?
I'm good. Not gonna waste anybody's time.
What about you, Mr. U? This is your first rodeo with us.
Yeah, the whole 70-point ribeye thing. Yeah, I'm not feeling that. But
you're not feeling it.
Hopefully
Okay.
that doesn't happen. But one of you guys will have to call me and check on me if that happens. I'm not emotionally ready for that. But hopefully we can show some stuff up. I heard that we got Justin Pugh off of the practice squad, so I'm like, okay. That's better than what we had. So perhaps that'll be an improvement. Maybe that'll give Danny Downs a little bit more time. So we'll see what happens with Barkley too. But yeah, other than that, I'm kind of just on pins and needles, man, waiting to see what happens, man. But good week of football.
Don't worry, you'll have another opportunity next Tuesday night when we break it all down again. Mel, any closing thoughts about last week or what you might want to, what you're looking at this week?
Yeah, Mr. U, you're not expecting the Giants to win this coming week, are you?
Oh, no, sir.
Oh.
I wasn't intimating that at all.
Just wanted to.
I'm just saying the 70-point thing. No, not.
That's a lot, man. They're tired. I mean, that'd be difficult if they did something like that. But I mean, you never know.
I changed my mind, Scott. I do have one thing.
Go ahead, Coach.
I'm looking forward to seeing the Cowboys and the 49ers play.
There you go. You know what? That's great. I'm glad you brought that. That's going to be a heavyweight match game if I ever saw.
That's where the timeline's going to explode on that game.
And there's a chance we maybe
the Cowboys.
I'd say for all those people that are topic friendly ahead of time, that may be one of the lead topics. So don't ask me. You can anticipate that one if you get my drift. Then I believe that'll actually be the game of the week, anyways. I really do.
Especially when the Cowboys lose.
What's that?
Especially when the Cowboys lose.
Oh, God, yeah.
That timeline will be freaking out. There'll be so many burning jerseys, it'll be unreal.
Yeah.
The game of the week?
Bo, you're on a roll, man.
The game of the week is high praise, man. I don't know about that.
What about you, George?
Well, yeah, hats off to Christian McCaffrey. He leads the league in rushing, 459 yards. San Francisco looks tough, guys. They look to me like the number one seed that so far, and it is going to be a heck of a game against the Dallas Cowboys. It should be a lot of fun watching that game. But hats off to McCaffrey. He's getting a lot of touches and scoring touchdowns and rushing, and he's looking really good right now to lead that running game for San Fran.
He's earning that contract.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, here's another comment from Charles Ramos. Great show. Thanks for the invite. You're very welcome. And of course, we'll follow it up with this again. Those that are watching, this excellent program. Everybody is top notch. Thanks again for the kind words. All right, go ahead, George. Some final thoughts about this past week.
Lions will win by probably 35 to 40 points over Carolina. I'm looking for a huge blowout. Huge. It's at home. They're going to blow them out by 35 or 40, I say.
Okay, well, everybody's got their final thoughts. All I'm going to say, all right, Charles, I'm going to let the guy that's on a roll really roll. We don't need bandwagon riders anyway. Burn the jersey. God, this guy's funny. I like him. Mr. Charles, we always look forward to. Please come back again. You got some really good stuff out there. I've been with the Cowboys since '72 and no one else. Okay, and then, let's see. All right, let's go ahead. We got another. I'm going to keep this show going if these comments coming. So those that can stay on, good. All right, Michael Osborne, can you talk about the Raiders should fire Coach McDaniels? Well, I hate to ask Coach Bono because you don't like to talk about jobs, but Josh McDaniels is not doing anything to really impress a whole lot of people, is he, Coach?
Not so far. I mean, we'll see. I mean, got to keep the quarterback upright.
Yeah, you hate to call for a guy's job, but man, you got to be able to do your job too.
Yeah.
Well, at least, Coach, you weren't expected to go out on a limb with that. It's just called common sense. Common coaching 101. So we don't want to get you in a position where you're going to be in deep trouble. No. But that's safe anyways. All right, Mr. U, any thoughts about Josh McDaniels?
I'm sure New England will take him back.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They can find a spot for him back in New England. I'm sure they can find a spot for him.
Absolutely.
Because this is not working, so sorry.
No, really
you guys
isn't.
say give him time, but the decisions he's made in crunch time, ugly, inexcusable. Bye, Josh. See you later. Happy trails.
Yeah.
There you go, Michael. I hope you got your answer from Mr. U because I have a feeling he's thinking the same way as you. Boy, I'll tell you, Mr. U, you make it easy with all these one-liners. I could write a one-liners book based on your name only, my friend. All right, Mel.
The water boy spot in New England has been filled yet, so I mean, he can come back and
what's that, Scott?
Gatorade.
That's fine. Mel, anybody else want to chime in on McDaniels before we call it a night?
Oh, I mean, no.
No. All right. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give everybody a Major League Baseball update. How's that sound? For those of you that are not watching baseball or kind enough to take your time. Right now, the Arizona Diamondbacks are leading the Milwaukee Brewers. The fifth runners, second and third for the Diamondbacks. Philadelphia Phillies are leading the Marlins 1-0, top of the fourth. And the Marlins have a man on first with 2 outs. Texas Rangers 4, the Tampa Bay Rays nothing. And the Minnesota Twins defeated the Toronto Blue Jays 3-1. So we'll have 108 Stitches baseball talk. That's your latest update here for the Major League Baseball playoffs. With that said, I'll go ahead and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you. Coach Bono probably has the easiest answer of any of them. So go ahead.
You can see me here. I'm on LinkedIn, and then Friday night under the Friday Night Lights. It's getting a little cool now, so not on the water as much.
Oh, you know what, though? Retirement isn't so bad knowing that you get to talk football with a bunch of people like us. All right, Mr. U, this is your coming out party, so why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Awesome. We're on Twitter at They Call Me Mr. U, MRYU. We're also on YouTube at They Call Me Mr. U, MISTAYU. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well, but we barely use those things, so it's kind of just YouTube, Twitter, and a little bit of LinkedIn sprinkled in, man. So love you. Subscribe to our channel. Help keep supporting the show.
All right, we got to go back to the chat room one More time, Mr. Ramos here. I helped put the roof on the Rays Stadium. Well, okay. They got another one coming up soon, so we'll see if you're able to put the next one on there. Mel, go ahead.
Yeah, you can reach me on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr., Twitter or X, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Threads, and then follow what we have going on for the youth at melfar.org.
Hey, George.
My book is out still. It's Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, and we've got lots of football greats in here as well. It's a book that also includes our host here, Mr. Scott Morganroth, interviewing Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors, and you'll see a lot of surprising photos in there. There's a link to purchase the book at the end of my column. I write under the South Florida Tribune, under the Motor City Tribune, and also you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com, and you can also reach me on LinkedIn and under my name, and on Twitter, X, a little bit different name, SandG Sports 99, SANDG Sports 99. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and let's go back to Charles Ramos before we bring Bo back in. All right, with the latest on the job situation. I'm an inspector for now. Someone else can do it on the Rays. All right. Hey, you know what? You started a thought. We're going to make sure you complete it. All right, I'll turn it over to Bo.
All right. Yeah, you can find me on all the social medias at Football Talk with Bo. And, of course, if you're watching on my channel right now, you hang out, and we will be there for the NFC North show in about 10 minutes.
All right, no problem. I'll turn it over to you in a moment. One more thing. Coming out with Charles, I was one of the first 2 iron workers hired by OC Bird here to put the roof on the dome stand. Very good. Pretty interesting stuff from Charles. And once again, Charles, thanks for being part of it. I'll let everybody know one more time that Inside the Pigskin being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room. That's one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter /X at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes and watching the Milwaukee Brewers and the Milwaukee Brewers. I can only visualize them like, come on, guys. I mean, my goodness, she's a passionate person. So please subscribe. And once again, as I mentioned at the outset of the show, those folks down at Baptist Health are helping me last week. They were first-class individuals, and I'm very grateful that you helped me get on my feet in an expeditious manner. I'm working on a book. I'll get into more details as we get closer to release date. So with that said, yeah, Candy Ebling, because she's paying attention to Go Brewers Go. All right, there you go. So now she came out from behind the scenes and got in the chat room. Good stuff, Candy. All right. So on behalf of Coach Bono and Mr. Yu making his debut, okay, there we go. This guy's got, like I said, I have a lot of fun with just coming up with analogies of him. Mel Farr Jr., George Eichhorn, and Bo. This is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. We will see you next Tuesday night. Have a great weekend, everybody. And I'm looking forward to getting back in a press box when I cover the Miami Hurricanes and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in prime time on Saturday night at Hard Rock Stadium. Good night, everybody.